Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm joined by a new friend who's a great dude that you're going to love meeting. If you've been following my podcast for any length of time, you've seen that I really enjoy bringing in the betrayed male. The betrayed male feels like they're on an island, and all they do is read things like help her heal or when he cheats. And it just feels incredibly abandoning and alone. And so John reached out and was like, look, man, I just want to help. I just want to be a part. And I'm incredibly grateful that you've reached out, John. So thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
So you being a betrayed male, what's interesting is I've had so many betrayed female reach out and go, Sam, look, dude, it's just a male voice. I'm resonating with so much of what they're saying, and it's a new wrinkle or a new nuance or it's a new insight that really has been so helpful. And so even the betrayed females are just really enjoying kind of this breath of fresh air that they don't feel alone. Because when you're dealing with infidelity, you always feel alone. Mm-hmm. You feel like nobody gets it. You feel like nobody can relate. So for the viewing and listening audience, why don't you take a couple of minutes and just share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, thanks. So I was married, still am. We're separated, but I was married for 8 years. We have 2 kids, and in August of 2023, I discovered her affair, her infidelity, and some dishonesty really throughout our entire relationship. You couple that with being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 2 weeks later, and it just seemed like my world had just completely been upended, and for all intents and purposes, it had, and so that was a real struggle. I can say the importance of therapy, the importance of reaching out to specific specialized resources, I think is one of the key things that has got me through that to the degree that I am. Just for your knowledge and awareness, I am in remission, so I'm thankful and grateful for that. And certainly, even and maybe we'll discuss this at some point, the both and, but certainly thankful and grateful for her support during the time that I was going through treatment.
Well, I know I speak on behalf of the audience, and so many people who listen and watch me have been through cancer or even are going through it. There's a sweet client that I have, and I'm hoping she's watching, and she's just a wonderful woman who is one of the most courageous women I've ever met, going through a real journey. I'm sure it's been quite the journey for you. So for all of you watching and listening, man, going through the cancer world, we're so proud of you. We're cheering you on. We know it's hard. And being a betrayed male is hard. You talked about this off camera, that the discovery of your wife's infidelity was shattering.
Yes.
And anybody that's been through it feels that sense of shattering and then has to rebuild. But what has that been like for you? How did you start to even want to rebuild, and how has it been in that process?
Yes. So rebuilding very reluctantly and not really understanding. I use this analogy, and I mean, no offense to people of faith, but if somebody would have asked me who would betray you first, Jesus Christ or your spouse, the level of belief and trust and the view that I had of her, I would have said Jesus, which again, no offense to anyone out there. So right. It really was a shock. It's not as if there were signs that were ignored. It's not as if there was a rough patch in our relationship, et cetera. It really came out of the blue. And I was a braggadocious husband. I married the right one. We had a great relationship, and to the degree that people would comment on the level of friendship and fun that we had. So you can imagine, that being completely flipped upside down. And then, add to it, there's so much out there about don't confront the affair partner, or these are the do's and don'ts. But I'll tell you, certainly as a male, when you're in that moment, you don't care, and all that stuff
Right.
goes out the window.
Right.
And you add to the individual potentially being a high profile, professional athlete. That's something that can really hit hard for certainly a man. And I'm not taking it away from our betrayed women, but it certainly was difficult. And through an odd event, I ended up meeting this guy at a bar, and he said to me, he's about 5 years post divorce. He really wished that he would have gone through a course that one of his friends told him about through Affair Recovery, and I thought that was strange. He and I are still friends to this day, but that's what helped me understand. I was already in therapy at that time, right? I have been going to therapy on a regular basis, but that's what kind of helped me understand that I needed specialized treatment, and that I needed specialized care in dealing with betrayal trauma, understanding what it does biologically, not just to your emotions, to your spirit, et cetera.
So in finding this out, having to really come to grips with it, how did you start to, and because it's not like you're 5 or 10 years out, I mean, you're still kind of rebuilding. What have you found to be major keys to helping you rebuild a sense of who you are, finding out who you are on the other side of infidelity is a big key as well?
Yeah, really good question. So what I really struggled with for the first, I would say at least 6 months, was not being able to envision a future outside of what was already established and planned for. And that wasn't only demoralizing, it was terrifying. And so working through some specialized treatment and therapy, working through a course with Affair Recovery, just to see that other men are going through this, helped to a degree. But I guess how I would answer that is I really needed to exercise some demons per se. There certainly was times that we hear about of flooding, emotional flooding. I remember panic attacks at work or on the way to work. I remember things just coming out of nowhere. And then, just this real fight or flight moments happening. What was a turning point to a degree for me was understanding and being able to hold the both and, right? That my spouse has hurt me in the worst way that I could imagine. But they love me and I love them. And not feeling a pressure to try to dissect that and explain that and make sense of that across the board, as if I would need to justify that to others.
But how? Because, man, when you're in the thick of it and you're trying to navigate through it, I'm sure that you probably, if people did know, they would be saying you should do X, Y, and Z. But then there's a part of you that's like, no, I want to try this. And then there's cancer. I mean, how did you find the grace or the strength or the wisdom to be able to go, this is a both and? How do I handle the both and?
Yes. So my therapist, I ended up switching therapists to an individual that is specialized in betrayal trauma, and he's a male as well. He offered some suggestions which were helpful, but the how, Sam, was really trial and error and time. And I don't say time in the sense that it reduced the searing pain and the paranoia and the anxiety and the feelings of inadequacy, but it almost set into a degree of, this is your reality now, and you are going to have to figure this out at some point in time. The other thing that I would offer as well, this was a connecting point for she and I, and that is I'm very protective and defensive of how she is spoken of. No one talks shit about her. not me, not anyone else. And having friends that honored that, having some new friends, but they've become very, very dear and important to me. Guys that have been on the other side, right? That have been the unfaithful, being able to speak to them and ask them questions, having them over to the house. This is before I moved out, but even now, I will invite some of those friends over here to her and the kids' house for dinner and hang out. And that is different, perhaps than other people's stories. I want to be very clear and upfront with this. I'm only speaking from my standpoint. I'm not offering advice. I'm just sharing where I am.
Right.
We're not on a path to reconciliation, and we're not on a path to divorce. We're just separated right now. And I think the theme that I'm trying to express is what helped me get there was one foot in front of the other, and understanding that my journey is my journey, and it's going to look different than others.
Was it hard for you, though, looking at other people's journey? Comparison is so toxic, right? Well, this guy's wife did that, or this guy's wife did this, or what have you. Was it tough to get beyond that? Because for you to say my journey is really brave and really courageous, but I'm assuming you didn't get there overnight. No,
and I am still on it very much. Yes, there were times in looking at others of, that individual seems to be putting a lot more work in as an unfaithful, or, oh, I'm really glad I'm not in that person's situation. And you know what it really did, and this was a tough pill to swallow. It put a spotlight on my previously held views of men who were betrayed by their wives. That I'm raising my hand saying this, and it's embarrassing, but my whole point is to be authentic here. I fell into that camp previously of, well, I guess he's not taking care of things at home. Well, I guess this, that, or the other. And the other aspect of that too was, well, if I were ever cheated on, I would leave, right? All these held beliefs that you had, that you would state are a fact almost of this, that, or the other. To have those questions and to see that they were not, that's not exactly how things were being handled, or how I was choosing to handle them. Further complicated to a degree, my sense of understanding me and my intuition and my beliefs and the world post betrayal. But through some time, realizing there's a lot to learn, and that's not a bad thing. It gives me, it's more exciting and hopeful than it is, oh man, I'm really behind and have a lot to learn.
I think it's well said. I talk about this all the time, about how everybody says what they'll do when infidelity happens until it actually happens, right? You've got kids, you've got assets, you've got a life together, you've got a legacy, you've got family, in-laws, outlaws. There's so much to it. So I'm going to ask you a question. We didn't talk about this off camera, but as you reflect, navigating through what I find to be, and you're going through two of the toughest things a person can go through, which is infidelity and dealing with cancer. As you look back upon yourself, as you see yourself now, it took me forever. I mean, a long time. And any of my mentors or therapists or best friends that listen would say, it took a long time for that dude to see himself differently. A long time. But how do you see yourself now? I mean, like you said, you're kind of in the middle, but you've had to work through some real dark demons, if you will. How do you see yourself in light of everything that you've gone through and are still going through?
So I would say the idea of self-love, self-compassion, et cetera, was foreign to me. And believing that I had to be a certain way, achieve a certain job, a certain income, attain certain degrees, et cetera, to be successful. Or on the other side of that, if my spiritual belief system is this, and I attend church and do these things, then that somehow creates who I am, and may prevent some of these things that have happened. And so how I view myself today more so is someone with a very deep love for people, someone who is more compassionate to himself, and therefore more compassionate and understanding to others. I'm still doing quite a bit of work and understanding boundaries and attachment style and what that looks like for me in this stage of my journey. But I'm much more open to seeing and understanding different views. In fact, I've learned to almost welcome them for my own meditation and learning and understanding.
So you said something that I think is really fascinating when we get into it. You had said, I've learned self-compassion and even compassion for your wife and people that have been unfaithful. What kept you from, I can tell you there's so many guys that I have talked to over the last 20 years. Sometimes they're like, look, I have my gun. I'm ready to go visit. Some people have done that. Some have gone and approached affair partners. I've heard of some really dark, painful stories, male and female betrayed, who have handled things in ways that they later regretted. And sometimes they don't regret. So you that are listening, I get it. But how did you not go, John, to the dark side? And maybe you did for a short period of time. But how did you not go to hating everybody, everything, just wanting to just go on the warpath, just wanting to give up and quit, and just hating life for the amount of betrayal and pain? Because sometimes, and this happens in marriages and relationships, sometimes the betrayed feels so much pain. The only survival tactic that they have is to try and make their unfaithful suffer because they're in so much pain. I am not at any level vilifying the betrayed that does that. I'm just saying it runs its course and it's hard and it's painful. How did you not go to the point where you just were like that? What kept you from that?
Well, that's a great question, and I, in full transparency, I have to say, I did confront the affair partner. I do not encourage anyone to do anything along those lines of what I did. But in my line of work, I'm very used to having difficult conversations, but I never felt a level of wanting to harm that person or anything along those lines. I don't know if I would do it that way again. My biggest regret and my biggest hurt, what really breaks my heart for her during this time would be the times that I would be hurt and we would be talking and I would lash out. And then I would be, there was times that I was emotional in tears, even asking her to forgive me for those words, 30 or 45 minutes later, but then still having my hurt as well. It was very, very confusing in trying to understand what that looked like. And there was a season of about a month or so where I was acting out in a sense of just, being out later than what I should be, and self-soothing at times, but to know and see how that didn't help either, and that was empty. It almost hurt even more so that I could not find a level of relief from the pain and from the confusion and from the fear and the anxiety. Yeah, it was very, very difficult in that sense.
Oh, absolutely. And you're putting it lightly, because it is like being put through a wood chipper, right? Like just having the hottest grease imagined, poured on you, and just the burn. So I'm going to ask you a tougher question, because this is really helpful for the betrayed, but also for the unfaithful. Is that I know that things haven't been decided. You haven't decided if you're saving the relationship or not, but How do you see your wife? How have you been able to find a compassionate stance, even though things are unsure? How have you come to that point? Because that's a hard point. That's a hard place to get to.
It is. It is a very hard point to get to, and I think that there are some things that she has engaged in and moved towards that have been helpful in viewing her in the ways that I do today. I love her very much. What we say to each other is I don't just love you. I like you. I like being around you. I like talking to you. And that's why this is hurtful. The other things that have helped in the way that I view her have been understanding that, based on people's beliefs, but she is created in the image of God and deserves dignity and respect. Like the affair partner is created in the image of God and deserves dignity and respect. And so there may be some people hearing me say this that may be, earlier on in discovery thinking that's crazy.
Right.
But
absolutely.
And I totally understand that. But there is something, I think for me that shifted or clicked around the 9 or 10 month mark of how long am I going to keep punching this brick wall, so to speak, and this person did this and that person did that, and I can't believe this and I can't believe that. There were times that I would literally stay up all night, just obsessively going through material from all points, right? And books, et cetera. There's a lot of very, in my opinion, unhelpful material out there, specific towards men, and I find it somewhat dangerous in the way some of those things are.
As they say in slang terms. Say it again for the people in the back. You're exactly right, dude.
Yeah, it's very, very unhelpful. And what I realized was happening is it's not that I was sitting in just that specific material, but I could tell a big difference in reading or viewing certain things around that from a betrayed male standpoint. And there's something that would almost to a degree validate some of the hurt or pain or ego issues. But here's what's really dangerous. It doesn't offer anything regarding healing or moving forward in a way that I would characterize as strong and healthy and right and true.
Dude, you're exactly right. I couldn't have said it better, just from someone who's been out there and you've read the stuff. I'm out there all the time, every day, and I read some stuff and I'm like, oh, God, please don't let a broken, hurting male or female find this approach, because that's the last thing they need. Yeah. Having said that, as we're about to say goodbye, I always do this. I'll never forget 20 years ago, I was in my little car. I had this sports car and I was in the middle of a field. I drove in the middle of the field of this frickin' West Texas cornfield, because it just was very surreal, very serene. I just was like, and I remember at that moment, call it God, call it whatever you want, but one of my mentors called me. He goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm sitting in a field." He goes, "You're sitting in a field." I said, "I'm sitting in a field." He goes, "Are you going to harm yourself?" I said, "No, we're beyond that, thank God." He goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm just depressed. I'm just so lonely. I'm so alone. I've lost everything." Now you're on the other side. You're a betrayed. I guarantee you've had many of those moments. Add cancer to the picture. Mm-hmm. If you were to teleport into a dude's car or a female's car who are just in this dark place, man, if you could teleport or jump into their radio and just talk to them for a minute to tell them some way to keep going, what would you say as someone who is still in the middle of it but has been through some dark ass days, dude? What would you say to, obviously, the betrayed male, but to any betrayed?
To any betrayed, I would say this: if this feels like hell, it's because it is. But you are not alone. You are loved. You are valued, and you are cared for. there is nothing more important right now than seeking appropriate treatment. You will not move through this in a healthy way without help. And then lastly, what I would say is the biggest thing for me, take this for whatever it's worth. The biggest turning point for me in the past 6 months has been the power of empathy. You just mentioned that you were sitting in that field depressed. You were dealing with your own trauma and your own shock and your own upheaval. And I know people might say, well, yeah, but he was unfaithful. That does not matter. What you were experiencing, what was happening to you and what you were dealing with does not take anything away from your value and your worth and your dignity. Nobody, I've heard you say this and others, nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to hurt the person I love the most. And I'm just going to blow my home apart. That's what I'm going to do. Nobody does that. And I think being able to shift our view as the betrayed to the unfaithful of they are not the enemy. Yes, some decisions they've made have cut us to the core, but they are not the enemy. And do we really want to enact or be a part of a world where if you are defined forever for a mistake, you are defined forever because of that?
You're exactly right. And I just love the palatable bravery in how you carry yourself, because you speak in such a way, and it's always been my hope and my prayer from when I started doing this almost 2 decades ago, is you speak in such a way as I'm sure the person listening undeniably says, that dude gets it. He has lived through some dark nights, some dark days, right? It's the dark night of the soul and what have you. But bro, I'm so grateful. And I know I speak on behalf of a large community of betrayed men and women who are so grateful that you've come in and that you've pushed through those dark days. Look, I asked you how you felt about yourself. I find that to be something that we always have to ask ourselves. I'm grateful for that time in the field. I'm grateful for that moment in a dang cornfield in West Texas that somebody cared enough to say, hey, keep going. So for those of you that are watching and listening, I'm so honored. On behalf of John and I, thank you for coming in and listening once again. If I can be of any help, if I can be of any service, by all means, please leave a comment here, hit like. I'd love for you to follow. I'd also love for you to email me at samshealingpodcast@gmail.com. John, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to get a ton of people saying that dude needs to come back in. So I hope you'll consider coming back in, bro. Anytime.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, you as well. And we'll see you all next time on Sam's Healing Podcast.
Bye.